I'm trying to record a podcast.
Hey, pet parents. Welcome to Your Natural Dog. Today, our guest is Dr. Eve Harrison, and Dr. Eve is going to be talking to us about this trend that is happening in veterinary medicine, which we have kind of seen in the human medicine world already, of the corporatization of medicine and kind of what that does and how that affects the way that our pets are able to get care. And ahead of this, I just wanted to read you some statistics that I found when I was researching this topic. 75 to 80% of all specialty and emergency pet hospitals are now owned by corporate consolidators. 25% of general veterinary practices are under corporate consolidation. And over the next 10 years, that total could reach more than 60%. They're looking to acquire around 1,000 independent practices per year over the next 10 years. So obviously, this has a huge impact on the kind of service that our pets are getting, really changes the way that we're able to anticipate and really provide our animals with great health. And Dr. Eve is someone who is an incredible advocate, who practices a really well-rounded medicine, and is somebody who's out there really fighting the good fight to keep medicine in the hands of practitioners and out of the hands of the profiteering corporate interests. So enjoy this conversation.
I have a 5-year-old border collie named Wednesday who suffers from car ride anxiety and travel anxiety. I have a 9-year-old Great Dane named Moxie who's starting to get arthritic and hard to get up and move around since she's getting older. Then I have a 15-year-old dog named Harley who suffers from severe arthritis and dementias. Wednesday would just sit there and shake the entire car ride, which I didn't want to put her through that, so I stopped bringing her places. Moxie was having a hard time getting up and down the steps and in and out of bed. And Harley, he was having a really difficult time even just getting up from the laying position, and he would whine and cry and bark at night, wouldn't get a full night's sleep. I've tried the other supplements, I've tried prescriptions, and I just didn't really like the side effects. I felt like the bad outweighed the good, so that's when I decided to give hemp oil a try. Since using this product, I can take Wednesday anywhere. I give her hemp oil about 20 minutes before the car ride and she is good to go. Moxie can run and keep up with her 5-year-old sister, and it's just great to see them playing again. And even Harley can jump off in the couch now, which is great. And even when he is laying on the floor, he goes to get up and he just pops right up, and it warms my heart. And I'm just using one thing for all my dogs that range from 50 pounds to 145 pounds. And it's all natural, and I know I'm not doing more harm than good.
And we're back with Dr. Eve Harrison, and I was telling Carter that I think how I found you and came across was Instagram or TikTok. I'm more on TikTok. Is that where I found you?
Yeah, I don't do TikTok. That's not my scene. So it's Instagram for sure.
So I knew I found you on, and I can't even remember the message. I just remember sending it to Carter and going, Carter, let's get this girl on. I want to talk to her. It's so nice to now meet you in person. But I think what drew me to you is that you were sharing a group that you're involved in that's called Take Medicine Back. And this is like a message that I'm always talking about in veterinary medicine. And here I saw a vet who is talking about this for human medicine. And I thought, oh my gosh, I need to talk to her. And then I saw that you were a mobile vet. And I'm like, I bet she's a mobile vet because she doesn't want to be controlled by one of these big corporations. But just to tell people what this Take Medicine Back is, well, I'll let you, because you're involved. You're an advocate for the organization, but share a little bit about what they do for human medicine.
Sure. And first of all, I wanted to say thank you for having me on. I'm really excited to speak with you guys too. The mushroom and cannabis connection, and there's just so much stuff. And also bingo on exactly one of the many reasons that I am a mobile vet, but that is a major one. So you saw right through me. And of course there was this sort of natural connection between this sort of like an organization that does advocacy work and does work with legislation and goes to the Hill and brings interdisciplinary professionals in for conversations about how we can take medicine back from corporate interests. So this is primarily focused, right? So this is an organization that is run by Dr. Mitch Lee. He is an emergency medicine physician, I believe, in North Carolina. And we also connected on social media. I saw what he was doing and I was like, what in tarnation is this? And how do I get involved? And he, so it's been a few years now, I think 2 years, that maybe a little over 2 years that he's been going with this, and it's just growing and growing and really, really gaining a lot of momentum and visibility. And he's creating community, and he has a conference. I've spoken at his conference, one virtual conference last year and one in-person conference here in California. I was like, yay, you're in California. I can actually be there and meet everyone in person. Because cool. Up until now, it has been all kind of virtual Zoom stuff. And it's really special what this organization does. There's attorneys, there's accountants, there's dentists. I'm the, as we call it affectionately, the token veterinarian, but I've brought a lot of other people into the scene, and we had a number of veterinarians, not at the in-person one in California, because that was kind of like last minute that I was able to get the marketing out. But at the virtual conference last year, we had a ton of veterinarians who came and were very motivated and inspired and wanting to get involved as well. So this organization is, I'm very proud of them, and I'm really proud to be involved because I would say that kind of in my observation and kind of hearing the human side of this story of the corporate takeover of medicine, we see how bad it can get. Because there, in my view, it's something like 20 to 30 years in the future of what veterinary medicine is going to look like. And
I think we're already here. We're
already here, and it can get so much worse.
So much worse.
It's so much worse. And like, not only do we know it, just like our own family members or ourselves navigating the current landscape of medical field. My family is medical. They work within that system. We've had family members go through the system and not receive appropriate care, like the Kaisers of the world, et cetera, et cetera. And, we see it from so many perspectives, just as patients, as, kind of outside the scene, but then to join this group and start to work on advocacy with them and education with them, you start seeing it also from the medical side itself, from within, and right. You see how much moral injury there is, how much frustration, how much abandonment of what we know to be true and right for how to engage with our patients and how to practice ourselves. And what I see from the human medical side is they have it worse. So, I mean, it's here in the veterinary world. It's clearly here, but they are, I want to say, like, they have really been hit hard, and it's that sort of corporate consolidation process has really quite advanced. And we have a lot to learn from what these practitioners, human spelled HOOMAN. That's how when Mitch Lee and I talk, we always talk about physicians, FUZZICIANS, and human docs, HOOMAN. We didn't make that up, but that's kind of like the language that we speak, and it's kind of funny to be like, we're all doctors here, we're all providers, we're all healthcare professionals trying to do the best we can for our patients, and fighting this sort of what's called the corporate practice of medicine, where we try to provide what we believe is best, and corporate influence comes in, even if they're, a middleman, or they're dictating our staffing or how many appointments we have to see per hour. All of that affects the medicine itself, right?
Absolutely.
Quotas.
Quotas, and they've made the decisions for you, and it's no longer a do no harm. We're no longer keeping that oath. Instead, we're just practicing a standard of care. You've got this, you do that. This is what you do if the dog has this type of thing. But I feel like it's worse in veterinary medicine because they're in the schools. Like you don't go to see, don't go see your human doctor and say, they go, okay, you've got a kidney issue. Go eat that bag of food, and then I'm going to follow this standard of care of, these are the meds, these are the whatever. So in my opinion, it's worse. The first time I walked into a vet school and saw the Hills Science Diet and the Purina posters all over the wall, and that they were giving all the students the food for free, and I'm like, whoa, this starts early. And I don't think people understand. Our pets are considered property. So if I am one of these corporations that is taking over a medical system or a hospital because I want to make money, they don't care about me. And they find out that our pets are considered property and they have nothing to lose. They come over into the veterinary industry and take over because there's no consequences. I want to read some of these statistics from the website because to me, I feel like it's the same thing in vet medicine, and you tell me. It says 34 states prohibit corporate practice of medicine to protect patients. That's amazing that exists. And it also saddens me that it has to exist, that we have to make sure that it's not being controlled by a corporation. 58% of U.S. medical and nursing students do not intend to treat patients. I know that's crazy in the vet world. How many veterinarians get out and they end up going to work for a brand, a food brand, become a researcher. The people that go out that like you and treat actual pets is very few. 74% of physicians employed are employed by corporate entities. 90,000 or 1 in 10 physicians who work for or under Optum/United Health. 1 in 10 physicians. That means you're all following the same standard of care. And your ability and your instinct and your experience is kind of thrown out the window, right?
Bingo. Man, I have so many things to say to this. I have to put you in touch with Mitch Lee. You're going to love him.
Good.
And he's going to love you, I think. But this is the heart of what Take Medicine Back does. And we work in the legislation that, or the doctrine of prohibiting the corporate practice of medicine. It exists, but it's largely ignored, and there's a million ways that you can get around it. Actually, in the Take Medicine Back conference that we just had in California, there was a really good explanation of how this happens, and Mitch Lee actually explained it to me on my own podcast when I was talking to him, and it was absolutely fascinating. They have what's called quote-unquote captive physicians that are the face of the corporate entity. So it's a physician-owned or a veterinarian-owned, allegedly, practice, but ultimately they don't have any ability to dictate much of the medicine, but they're paid. They're paid to be that talking head, the face of the thing. So you can't exactly peg them as a corporation practicing medicine, because hey, they're the medical director, the owner, it is actually a physician or a veterinarian, right? So there's all these weird loopholes, and they know it. They do it. They use that information and they use those loopholes very deliberately, and they talk about it. Mitch Lee said that he had a conversation with someone who overtly told him this as how they work around that fact. And I would also like to say that your point about Hills and the sponsored lunch talks is what they were called. They would educate us about their products, right? And this is in vet school. This is not free of corporate sponsorship and corporate influence in our very, very own education, right? And it's not just Hills. It's VCA was having lunch talks and telling us what is and is not a good veterinarian.
Wow.
If you don't do this, you're a bad veterinarian. In other words, they were trying to get us into their internship programs. And of course I fell for it. I did a corporate internship, and I love the practice. I love the people, but I felt the corporate influence under it, and it grossed me out. It creeped me out. It grossed me out. It was palpable. It was palpable. Of course, like, you also have to separate the corporation from the people. Like, a corporation is not a human being. And the people who are working under it are often either trapped by non-compete clauses, they can't leave, or they financially are in a situation where they're stuck, or this is the least evil in their life that they have to do this, or maybe the practice was purchased and they already were very attached and connected and loving their whole team, and so they just stayed. There's a million reasons why people might be kind of working within that paradigm, but the paradigm itself is the problem, not the people, unless they're the people specifically enforcing that paradigm, or like trapping others within it. You know what I mean?
I do.
So I think you're absolutely right that it starts in vet school, and in so many ways, it's the corporate practices, it's the food, the big corporate food. There's, you're gonna love this one. This one is one of the ways that I think veterinarians are really, the veterinary world is very, very vulnerable. So we talk about big food, right? Big food. What about big euthanasia? We have the euthanasia companies coming in at the level of veterinary school, scooping people up, and they have euthanasia quotas in those practices. Jaw-dropping. I've heard this from so many people who've been through some of these corporate euthanasia practices, corporate home euthanasia practices, and I actually spoke out about it, and I wrote an article in a well-known veterinary publication, and the article was pulled several weeks later. Wonder why, right? So
I'll publish it. Send it to me. I'll publish it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's very, very interesting. But those same companies also provide great amounts of money and sponsorship to other educational platforms over and over and over again. This is really it's a very tricky, vicious cycle that we can't get out of, because there's money involved. There's quotas, and what's also very scary to me, and I think I'm speaking to people who understand this language, that this is becoming normalized. Euthanasia quotas are not simply something that cause moral injury to the veterinarian and contribute to our mental health crisis. It's wrong. I mean, it's just like largely wrong.
It's the opposite of why you got into this practice in the first place.
Yeah. Do no harm. And I hear of people who, a lot of my like local house call colleagues who are independently owned, and they hear about animals being euthanized that shouldn't have been euthanized, and or not, the right questions not being asked, and it's just like, oh, well, if we euthanize, we make the profit comes, they meet their quotas. There's not asking the questions about, well, is there something we could actually do here? Maybe the person doesn't understand that there are other things we can do, or like seek another way. And I mean, when I speak about euthanasia, I have to be cautious, because I personally it weighs very, very heavy on all of us. There's not a single veterinarian or veterinary professional that euthanasia does not weigh heavy on. And I personally, I'm not against euthanasia, but I lean a little bit more towards the sanctity of life, that when you don't have to euthanize, like, please, let's not. I have a really, really high bar for what qualifies for euthanasia in my book. So much so that I'm going to be very, very honest, I don't even do euthanasia anymore, because it was affecting my mental health in ways that were not productive. So I just decided to let that part of me go. But I have a really high, when I am doing euthanasia, the periods of time when I'm not on that hiatus, which it is to me a hiatus. It's like there are periods of times where I don't feel it's the right thing for me to be doing that. And there are times that it is. But in general, if I am doing euthanasia, I have a quite a high bar for me to be able to sleep at night, for what constitutes the right time. And it has to be, obviously the client's decision, but I have to live with the fact that I did it. So it's got to be both in my world, right? And I know not everyone feels that way. I know there's a million ways to look at this, and my way is not the right way. This is just how it lands in my heart. And
well, I don't know about my listeners. I would kill to have a veterinarian like you who feels that way. And for those that are listening that maybe this doesn't make too much sense. And I remember, Carter, you and I discovering this statistic, which is that the number one reason for people putting their dogs down is allergies or arthritis.
Yeah.
And you know what I do for a living. I'm like, no, we can change that. It is when your dog starts limping, it doesn't mean it's the end of their life. They're old, just like you are, kind of thing. So
Right.
I totally agree with you. Shouldn't even be part of your job. It should be something that is separate. You're there to help heal them, and get them better. So I think it's beautifully said. And when I had my rescue, I got a lot of animals that way, where I had veterinarians who didn't think that it was time for a dog to be put down and gave me a call and said, "You want to see what you can do with this one?" And I'm like, "Yep." And every time I was able to take this dog that was being put down because its quality of life was gone, and all I needed to do was feed it real food, get it off all of these prescription medications that were killing it, detoxify them, bring them back to homeostasis, give them a whole bunch of homeostasis, give them a whole bunch of hemp, a whole bunch of mushrooms. And they did.
Mushrooms. Yes.
They came back to life, and they thrived and, lived their life. And I saw it over and over again. So I'm on your boat, honey. I know.
It was incredible seeing those animals come to your farm, Angie, and to have that turnaround where, like Miss Daisy, she was this 15-year-old lab collie mix that was like pretty incoherent, foggy in the brain, had this dysplasia in her back leg, tumors all over her body, and in a matter of months have this like total turnaround. But it's true exactly what you're saying, Dr. Eve. Like, these veterinarians, they don't have the resources of time and energy to guide pet parents who don't know through, hey, you're going to have to switch this diet. They might be having diarrhea everywhere for a while. Don't worry. You're going to have to put them on this hemp product. Don't worry. It's not going to kill them. Like, there's just so much that has to be done that I think our vets are stretched so thin,
Such a
that
good point.
they don't see it as an option to really have these conversations. They just have their protocols that they follow.
Man, that is such a good point. There's so many branches of that I want to go into. I feel like this episode's gonna have to be like 3 hours long already. But I think that well, first of all, you're absolutely right that we're all stretched incredibly thin, especially under the kind of corporate paradigm and the corporate overlords. And when we own our own practices and we work solo the way I do, you're as stretched as thin as you want to be, or as thick as you want to be. You're as expansive as you want to be. And it feels very, very different to be able to sit with people and have the time, the spaciousness and the freedom of time in the home. That's the opposite of a conveyor belt medicine that we're starting to get into, right? Like next. That is the polar. I always tell my clients I work on dog and cat time. I have a huge ETA window because I'm like, well, first of all, I'm a little bit time blind. I'm going to just be honest about that. I'm like, time. I don't understand what this thing is, but I also do work on dog and cat time. So however long the thing takes for the cat to accept the treatment, however long the dog takes to let me do the blood draw, that's how long it's going to take. However long, we need to talk about the issue with the owner, for the caregiver, the guardian, for them to feel comfortable and they understood. That's how long it takes, right? So that's a really, really amazing luxury that I have in my practice, and what I'm hoping to create more of in the veterinarians who are learning with me and who are interested in the paradigm that I practice. And I would say most house call vets, well, before I existed and before I started teaching anything about this, that is the house call paradigm. That's like, you're on dog and cat time. Like, I made that kind of thing up, but that is not a thing that has existed, that didn't exist before. Just these are the words that I use to describe it, right? But I would also say that in the vein of thinking back about end of life care in home, independent in home end of life care providers, I think it's absolutely a beautiful thing that they do. They don't have someone else interfering in the ethics and the morality of when it's time, how long to take, how many to do in a day. Like, is your soul okay today seeing 6 to 8 euthanasias and nothing
Right.
else? Like, are you okay? Most euthanasia vets I know would never see that number per day.
Right.
I mean, some do, and some have this sort of like fortitude that their emotional constitution is just really, really solid, and they can sit in this pain and hold it and just, you know, do it in a beautiful way that is not violating their own personal integrity, and I honor that so much.
Right.
But I also want to say that what's very dangerous about having kind of, you had mentioned something about like there's only so much each person can do. There's that we sort of get in this sort of tunnel that it's like, I learned this in school, but it's actually, oh my God, there's like 5 million other things, other resources conventionally trained veterinarians don't know. Like the simplest thing, like you can give slippery elm root powder for diarrhea. You can give tremella mushrooms for diarrhea. Like, you don't have to go to the metronidazole. Sometimes you need it. I'm an integrative vet, right?
Hallelujah. Could you say that again? They
I'm
don't
an
teach you
integrative.
that, though. They don't teach you that.
Of
They
course
teach
not.
you
And
just
so,
to use the metro. They don't teach you the other things. And
right.
not
And
only
I
do they
mean, I'm
not
gonna
teach
say,
you,
like,
they also
right.
they also call it alternative. Like, that's
Yeah,
what you go to when the other, that's the old stuff. That's not what we do
yeah,
anymore. Instead of the
right,
original that still works, has always
right,
worked, and doesn't have
right.
awful side effects.
Right. And as an integrative veterinarian, I use both. There are definitely times that I'm very thankful for metronidazole, but it is certainly not my first choice for,
Right.
you know, your run-of-the-mill diarrhea. In the clinic, almost always it's like diarrhea equals metronidazole. But there's so much more. And then I also wanted to say, like, that this sort of tendency to specialize, I think it's a really good thing as our knowledge base as a profession expands, and it's going to continue to expand. That's the nature of existence. Like, we're going to learn things and keep learning, and no one person can hold any one thing. But I do think that there is a little bit of a danger that concerns me. Like, I'm on the fence about even saying this, because as a person who doesn't anymore do euthanasia, I cannot say how thankful I am for my wonderful independent in-home euthanasia providers that I trust my own patients with, that I've known for their entire life. And I'm like, this person is wonderful. They're going to take such good care of you. And like, I can't say how thankful I am for that. But on the other hand, there's something in my head that I can't get out. And like, I don't want any of my like colleagues who are listening to this to think I'm not in support of them. But if you go to a surgeon, they're going to want to cut. If you go to a shoemaker, they're going to want to do things to your shoes. If you go to an internist, they're going to find an internal medicine problem and treat it with internal medicine. If you go to a mushroom specialist like me, I'm going to send them mushrooms. Like, honestly, I am. It's really true. Like, there's a million things mushrooms are good. If you go to a euthanasia provider, they're going to euthanize. That's the goal, right? So I think there's something in me that just, oh, we have to be so careful and hold that type of practice so carefully and think so deeply about the ethics and the morality and how what the pressures are on us. And I think if we're not running the show ourselves, really tapped into our own inner dialogue, our own inner morality and ethics, and we're also, as they say, serving two masters, our own patients and our corporate overlord, or a quota, or prize if you euthanize this number of patients. And I think that gets real complicated. And
So I think
yeah,
I think what your problem is that you can't even comprehend that people like this exist. which is the people who have a dog that they get it as a puppy or they even rescue it and it hits 10, 11, 12 and starts having all of the problems and they say they think it's suffering, and then they go to these places specifically to put their dog down, not to find a remedy or make things better. And the reason
I think the owners, the clients, the guardians, they don't know better. They think that this is what needs to be done. It's the veterinarian's job to tell them what all the options.
I agree. I think there's a little of both. And the reason that I've come to this conclusion is because I had a rescue. And so I had both. I had the ones where I was like, you know that this dog does not have to be put down. All you have to do is do this. And I would either be met with, oh my God, thank you. And then try it. Oh my God, he's back to life. He's out of pain. Or the ones that are just like, I've tried everything. I just can't anymore. Now my husband's sick. It's too much work. I have to go to work. I can't be there every day, all day. So I do think that people use it. There are people, remember that what I started with was that animals are treated as objects. There are people who have pets as objects. Those people do not love their animals like we love our animals. Because yes, we would absolutely, I am not driving my sick animal to a place where that's all that they do. I can't even take it to the vet. It's someone's coming to my house. So I can see where it's becoming, animals still becoming objects, are treated as objects. And those of us that are like, hell no, and separating and demanding and wanting more and wanting a veterinarian that is like you, who truly cares about my animal and the soul of my animal and it feeling and living, and that it's not time and that there is more that we can do. But that's why, it scratches your head. It's kind of like, I just came from Mexico and I remember, I bought property in Mexico and I'm saying to them, they're going, oh, it's going to go like this, this, and this. And I go, well, what happens if it doesn't? Do I get my money back? Is there a guarantee or whatever? Here I am, the paranoid American. And I'm looking at them going, and they're looking at me like, why wouldn't we do what we say we're going to do? It's kind of like that, like there still are people that are like this, that this is our intention is good. We really want to help your animal. So thank you for being one of those veterinarians. Where in California are you? What area do you serve?
I'm in Los Angeles.
Oh, man. You sure you don't want to go down to San Diego?
Oh, I go to San Diego all the time. I used to live in San Diego. I love San Diego.
Do you do appointments in San Diego?
What's that?
You do appointments in San Diego?
I would. They're very expensive for me to travel that far, but I would.
Awesome. Well, when I get back, I would love for you to come out and see all my dogs.
Amazing. And I'll just sprinkle mushrooms on all of them. Like we can do it together.
What are your favorite? Tell me about your favorite mushrooms. Which ones do you love to use in practice? How are you using them?
Oh my God. This is an impossible question. I cycle through. Like this is a real dilemma for me to answer that question because I'm so in love with mushrooms.
Me too.
I just found a few, I found a bunch of turkey tails the other day and I made jewelry out of them. I have earrings that are like dangling turkey tails and a necklace and stuff. I should have worn them. Oh, that was so stupid of me. I should have worn them to this podcast. I mean, turkey tails are just like magical for everything. They're so beautiful. I love reishi. I'm also into the foraging aspect of things. I found my first reishi just a few weeks ago and they're beautiful. They're so solid.
I'm telling you, if you've got some time, go up to the Redwood National Forest and they are everywhere.
Oh.
Giant artist conch, giant reishi everywhere. I was freaking out. And I'm like, because I knew they didn't grow on redwoods. So I'm like, I'm not going to find a reishi out here. I was like, I literally was screaming every 5 seconds. They were everywhere. So you have to go sometime. It is, if you love mushrooms, you're going to be like me screaming.
Oh my God. Okay. So I also was screaming so my other favorite, I mean, oh my God, there's too many mushrooms for me to say. I've also, like for the last few years, I've been like absolutely taken with Amanita muscaria. That's for those who are listening who don't know. We probably do know if you're listening, but it's the mushroom with the red and white spotted cap. It's like the magic mushroom that it's not like technically like the same as what we call magic mushrooms, like the psilocybe species, but it is psychedelic in its own way when prepared properly. But it is so beautiful and so fascinating, and I found the mother load of them. I'll tell you off. I can tell you off air if you're interested. That's top secret.
Yeah, I think I would freak out if I came across a bunch.
You lose your mind. Yeah, and we're just out of mushroom season now. Like we're just starting to come out. I had a client, they gave me some giant chanterelles that they found. Like my clients know I love mushrooms, so they like gifted it to me, and I'm like, oh my God.
Awesome.
But yeah, we'll have to find. You're in San Diego. We'll have to go do some mushrooming up at the Amanita muscaria place. Like you'll die.
Yeah, I would love to do that, and I would love to meet you in person and show you my extracts that I make with the Myco Alchemist out of Oregon.
I can't wait.
Would be awesome. It's so nice to meet you, and thank you so much for coming on today and talking about this subject, which is not an easy subject to talk about. And it makes sense coming from an actual veterinarian and someone who is literally an advocate for both human, real medicine and veterinary animal medicine. So thank you so much for continuing to do what you do. You're an amazing person.
Thank you so much. Like what an honor to have someone ask me about exactly all the things that I'm super passionate about, and to like recognize that's a real honor, and I feel very seen, and I feel really excited to be in touch with you guys, and just thank you for having me on. It's wonderful.